Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into sandals that would shape the entire ancient world. You're in a palace in Pella, northern Greece, in the year 356 BCE, swaddled in fine linens, born to a king and a queen who may or may not believe she's part god. The air smells faintly of olives and incense. Your first cries echo off marble walls, and there's already political tension in the room. Because you are not just any royal baby. You're Alexander. And no pressure or anything, but you're expected to conquer the known world. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your father is Philip II of Macedon, a brilliant military mind with a drinking problem and more political baggage than a Spartan supply wagon. Your mother, Olympias, is a Molossian princess, fiercely intelligent, deeply spiritual, and very into snakes. No, not metaphorical ones. Actual snakes. She keeps them in the palace. Sometimes in her bed. You don't get to grow up normal when your bedtime stories include tales of Zeus himself visiting your mom in the form of lightning. By the time you're toddling around on the polished stone floors, palace guards are already whispering that you have the look. Sharp eyes, constant curiosity, a weird habit of talking to statues like they're real people. You're not exactly cuddly, but you're captivating. At age 7, while other kids are learning how not to eat rocks, you're already reading Homer's Iliad and asking your tutors uncomfortable questions like, how does one achieve immortality through glory? Which, is a red flag when it comes from a first grader. Olympias fans the flame. She tells you your real father isn't Philip, it's Zeus. Actual thunderbolt hurling, turns into swans, Zeus. Now, whether she believes this or just wants to make you feel important is something historians still argue about. But you believe it. Deeply. And belief, especially the delusional kind, is dangerous in the right hands. You grow up surrounded by rituals, politics, and horse poop. Your father builds you a mini army of kids your age, sons of nobles, so you'll know how to lead men, not just order them. You form your first squad. Future generals, lifelong companions, and, spoiler alert, the occasional traitor. You all fence, wrestle, ride, and study together. It's basically a very stabby version of summer camp. Then comes the horse. His name is Bucephalus, and he's unrideable. At least until you step in. You're 10 years old. You watch the wild pawing stallion for a moment, then realize he's afraid of his shadow. So, like a horse whisperer from the future, you calmly turn him toward the sun, hop on, and just ride off like you've done it 100 times. The nobles gasp. Philip weeps, and he says, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." The next few years are a blur of language lessons, swordplay, and long political dinners where your father drinks too much and embarrasses himself in front of guests. You watch closely, you learn. Sometimes you and Philip connect. He's proud of you, undeniably, but he's also a bit threatened. The boy glows a little too bright. Behind the scenes, your mother and father are locked in a cold war. Olympias despises Philip's many wives and affairs, while Philip suspects Olympias is manipulating your mind, and maybe some religious cults, to elevate your divine status. They barely speak. You're the pawn they both want to control. Meanwhile, the world around you is on fire. Persia dominates the East. Athens still acts like it's the center of the universe, and the Greek city-states can't agree on what day it is, let alone unite. Your father has been building alliances, marrying strategically, and occasionally flattening people who resist him. Macedon, once a rustic backwater, is now the power player in Greece, thanks largely to Philip's ruthless reforms. Ironically, you inherit a lot of your brilliance from him. But you're not content to just be the heir. You want to be Achilles. Like, literally. You sleep with a copy of the Iliad under your pillow. You're already imagining your name chiseled into marble. You train harder than anyone, sweatier than anyone, and yes, you look pretty great while doing it. The girls at court giggle behind fans. The boys half idolize you, half secretly hope you fall off a cliff. A quirky detail most don't mention: you're short, like 5 feet 6 inches on a generous day, but you carry yourself like a man twice your size. And that's not just charisma, it's conviction. You believe you're destined to rule the world. And honestly, it's starting to rub off on everyone around you. When you're about 13, your father brings in a new tutor. Not just any tutor, Aristotle. Yeah, that Aristotle. The guy who tutored logic into Western civilization. He agrees to teach you in exchange for your father rebuilding his hometown school. And for the next 3 years, your brain gets sculpted by one of history's greatest minds. Aristotle doesn't just teach facts. He teaches you how to think. Rhetoric, science, ethics, biology. With some casual animal dissection, fun times. He even introduces you to the idea of a universal empire, ruled not just by force, but by shared culture. Sound familiar? The scholar also hands you a strange lesson. He says non-Greeks are lesser, barbarians. You file that idea somewhere deep, where it'll simmer and later spark fierce debates as you try to rule Persians and Egyptians like one of them. But right now, you nod. You're still a sponge. There's a bittersweet tone in Aristotle's teachings. He knows you'll probably die young. All great conquerors do. You probably won't survive this. But that doesn't stop you. You're already planning to make history blink. And late at night, in the cool shadows of the palace, you look at the stars and whisper your name like it's already legend. By the time you turn 14, you're already the kind of teenager who could out-debate a philosopher before breakfast, and then outride a cavalry squad before lunch. And yes, you do both in sandals. Aristotle's influence is profound. He's planted seeds in your brain that will grow like ivy across the walls of history. You question everything, including the gods, and yet somehow still believe you are one. That contradiction, pure Alexander. Your lessons move beyond books. You start shadowing your father at court and on campaign. You watch how he holds a room, how he flatters, threatens, jokes, and then, in the same breath, orders someone executed. It's politics, power, and paranoia all rolled into one wine-soaked blur. You're paying close attention. You're learning when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. And then one morning, Philip vanishes for a little while and leaves you in charge. You're 16, technically still a child, though no one's brave enough to say that to your face. A small tribe in Thrace decides this is the perfect moment to rebel. Big mistake. You gather a force, ride north, and crush them. Efficiently, bloodlessly even. You rebuild their city, rename it Alexandropolis, and leave just enough survivors to tell the tale. You've now entered the phase of your life where you get to name cities after yourself. That will not stop. Your father's impressed, maybe even nervous. He starts to bring you along on real campaigns, and you get your first taste of large-scale battle. You fight at the Battle of Cheronea against a coalition of Greek city-states. It's messy, intense. You command the left flank, charge at just the right moment, and scatter the sacred band of Thebes, one of the most elite fighting units in Greece. They're made up entirely of bonded male couples, trained from boyhood to fight and die for each other. And you help annihilate them. Even Aristotle would have applauded the tactical timing. After the dust settles, Greece is yours, or rather, it's Philip's. But let's be honest, you're already doing half the work. The city-states are forced into a federation under Macedonian leadership. Officially, it's called the League of Corinth. Unofficially, it's Philip's playhouse. But the cracks in your royal family start to widen. Philip, in his quest for more allies, marries a younger woman named Cleopatra. No, not that Cleopatra. This one's Macedonian, and her uncle happens to be a powerful noble. Olympias, your mother, is not thrilled. She storms out of court, and you follow her. For a while, you're both in exile. You don't trust your father. He doesn't trust you. People whisper that the new marriage threatens your claim to the throne. After all, what if Cleopatra gives Philip a pure Macedonian son? And then, like all Greek tragedies, comes the wedding feast. At the banquet for Philip and Cleopatra, her uncle makes a toast to the legitimate heir Philip will now surely have. You snap. You throw your drink in his face and call him a drunk. Your father, already pretty drunk himself, draws his sword and lunges at you. He trips, falls. You mutter, "Here's the man who wants to cross from Europe into Asia, and he can't even cross a room." Everyone laughs a little too nervously. You storm out. But the damage is done. That's the last time you'll see your father truly in command. A year later, he's assassinated. It's sudden, brutal. He's walking into a theater for a wedding. No bodyguards nearby when one of his own men stabs him clean through. The killer runs, makes it to the exit, but is immediately taken down by Philip's companions. Dead men tell no tales, especially when those tales might point fingers. To this day, historians still argue whether you and your mother were involved. The evidence is thin, circumstantial, but the timing? Convenient. Olympias returns to court almost instantly. You are crowned King of Macedon at age 20. And then the purge begins. You know how this works. Every potential rival? Eliminated. Cleopatra and her infant are murdered, probably at your mother's command. Anyone who whispers doubt about your legitimacy is either exiled or silenced. It's not personal, it's policy. You can't build an empire if you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Still, it hits hard. You pace the palace at night, sleepless, sometimes gripping a dagger for no reason other than the weight of it feels right in your hand. The people around you say, "Hail the king," but you can hear the undercurrent of fear. Despite the chaos, you move quickly. You summon the Greek city-states and demand loyalty. Most comply. But Thebes, ever the rebellious teenager of Greece, refuses. They think you're a soft boy king, that you'll crumble under pressure. So you march south, fast, like horror movie fast. No one expects you to arrive so soon. You surround Thebes and offer mercy. They spit in your direction. So, you unleash your army. The city is utterly destroyed. Its citizens are sold into slavery. Its buildings leveled, and Thebes becomes a cautionary tale whispered across every port, inn, and temple in the region. You've sent your message. You are not your father. You are something else. After Thebes, the rest of Greece falls into line so quickly it's almost embarrassing. The League of Corinth declares you supreme commander of the Greek forces. Just like that, you're poised to launch the campaign that Philip only dreamed about, the invasion of the Persian Empire. But before you can cross into Asia, you must clean up one last rebellion. In the far north, near Thrace again, you fight through dense forests and rocky cliffs, facing tribes who use guerrilla tactics and homemade traps. At one point, your soldiers rope themselves together to scale a cliff face in the rain. It's brutal. You win, but barely. You return to Macedon covered in scars and praise. Here's a quirky little detail. During this campaign, your men find a valley full of sacred wolves. They refuse to fight until the animals leave. Superstition is everywhere in your army. Even you won't march on certain days unless the omens are right. Logic and Aristotle be damned. Back in Pella, you kneel at the tomb of Achilles, your hero, your imaginary brother across time, and you whisper, "Watch me." You really believe he's listening. You've inherited your father's army, his vision, and his enemies, but you'll use them all to carve your own legend, one spear thrust at a time. You stand at the edge of the world you've known, wind rushing through your cloak, eyes locked across the narrow blue ribbon of the Hellespont, the sea that separates Europe from Asia. On the far shore lies Troy, mythic land of heroes, and just beyond that, the vast Persian Empire. Millions of people, unfathomable wealth, armies that outnumber yours 5-1. You could still back out, pretend you were just sightseeing, but no. You're 22, already steeped in blood, and your eyes are fixed on conquest. You take a sacred detour. Before stepping into Asia, you stop at Troy, the ruined city of Achilles. You run your fingers across broken stones and offer a sacrifice at his tomb. You even stage a mock foot race with your closest friends. Just a little divine fanboy moment before toppling empires. You also take Achilles' legendary shield from the temple, because sure, who doesn't want the ancient Greek equivalent of looting your idol's merch table? Then you do something symbolic and a little cocky. You hurl a spear into the ground and declare Asia your land won by the spear. It's dramatic, bold, and possibly illegal, but hey, no one's arresting you. Across the water, you land in Asia Minor with just over 30,000 troops. It sounds like a lot, until you remember the Persian Empire has hundreds of thousands. You're like a wasp buzzing into a lion's den, except the wasp thinks it's Zeus. First stop, the city of Sardis. It surrenders without a fight. That's new. Then you march inland, where the Persian satraps are gathering. They don't take you seriously. To them, you're just a Macedonian princeling with a nice horse and an attitude problem. So they wait for you at the Granicus River, confident they'll crush you the moment you try to cross. What they don't expect is that you'll charge into the river like a lunatic. You ride with the companion cavalry straight into a hail of arrows, swords drawn, shouting, soaking wet, and somehow majestic. The water slows you down, the mud drags at your boots, and for a moment you are vulnerable. A Persian noble swings at you. His blade skims your helmet. You go dizzy. Then another Persian rides in, sword raised, and Clytus the Black, one of your bodyguards, lops off his arm just in time. It's chaos, beautiful, cinematic chaos. You break through. The Persians panic. You win your first major battle in Asia. Historians still argue whether you were bold or just incredibly lucky. After the victory, you don't punish the Persian soldiers too harshly, but you do make an example of the Greek mercenaries fighting for Persia. Traitors, you say. Many are executed, others sent in chains back to Greece. You're not just fighting an empire, you're sending a message. Every sword you raise carves fear into the minds of your enemies. Then comes the march south along the coast of Asia Minor. City after city surrenders. You let them keep their local rulers, temples, and traditions, so long as they acknowledge you as supreme commander. It's empire building by PR, and it works. A quirky moment happens at Gordion, a Phrygian city filled with prophecies and weird woodcraft. You're shown the Gordian knot, a giant twisted mess of rope said to be impossible to untie. Legend says whoever solves it will rule all Asia. You look at it for about 20 seconds, then casually pull out your sword and cut it in half. Boom. Problem solved. The priests are horrified. Your men cheer. Historians, still debating whether this actually happened, or whether it was a clever rebranding after you failed to untie the thing and got annoyed. Back on the road, you make a point of visiting temples and leaving offerings. You're not just a warlord, you're a liberator. At least, that's the brand. You let local leaders keep their customs, provided they accept you as overlord. The trick? You actually seem to mean it. You respect the Persian culture, even if you're cutting through their armies like a scythe. Meanwhile, Persia is finally waking up. King Darius III realizes you're not just a border raider, you're a real threat. He starts amassing a vast army deeper inland, intending to crush you once and for all. But before that can happen, there's another enemy, geography. The Taurus Mountains are next. You march your army through narrow, freezing passes where avalanches could wipe you out in a second. Your men are cold, hungry, and exhausted, and yet they follow. Not because they have to, but because you lead from the front. You walk beside them, sleep in the mud with them, joke about the fleas. You're charismatic to a fault, and dangerously inspiring. One soldier later writes that if you declared the sky was green, the whole army would nod and agree. In the valleys beyond the mountains lies Cilicia, and there you fall terribly ill. No one's sure why. Malaria, infection, poison? You lie in your tent, sweating and shivering, while your generals panic. If you die now, everything collapses. But then, a doctor named Philip offers to treat you, with a potion that could either heal or kill you. Just as he brings the cup to your lips, you receive a letter warning that Philip is a traitor. You smile, look the man in the eye, and drink. The army holds its breath. You survive. Maybe the gods are watching. Maybe it was a bluff. Or maybe you're just too stubborn to die. You rise from your sickbed, still weak but determined to fight. Word of your survival spreads fast, and Darius hears it too. He's assembling an enormous force, some say over 100,000 men, and heading toward a place called Issus. You prepare for what could be your last stand, and before the battle, you do something only you would dare. You write Darius a letter. It's half insult, half challenge. You say he's a coward, a usurper, and you basically invite him to try his luck on the battlefield. No one talks to the King of Kings like that. But you're not just anyone. Issus will be the moment that either breaks you or turns you into legend. The morning at Issus feels strangely quiet. The mountains behind you hem in your forces. The sea sparkles to your left, and somewhere just beyond the horizon, a massive Persian army is rolling in like a thundercloud. You've got maybe 40,000 men. Darius? At least double that, possibly triple. Nobody can agree on the exact numbers. Historians still argue whether he brought 100,000 or something far more exaggerated to stroke Greek egos. But what matters is he outnumbers you. Severely. And yet, you smile. You ride down the line, cloak flaring, greeting your men by name, slapping shields, joking like it's just another skirmish. You see the nerves in their faces. Some are boys, barely old enough to shave. Others are hardened veterans. But today, they all look to you. Darius has made a critical mistake. He chose the wrong battlefield. This narrow coastal plain neutralizes his numbers. His giant army has nowhere to spread. It's like trying to swing a sword inside a broom closet. You thrive in tight spaces. The Persians arrive with noise and color and banners that shimmer in the breeze. Darius rides in a golden chariot surrounded by elite guards. His army is filled with archers, cavalry, and mercenaries from every corner of his empire. Scythians with painted faces, Indian elephants still new to the concept of organized battle. It's like someone mashed together an Olympics parade and a war crime. You ride to the front with your companion cavalry, your most trusted warriors. On your right flank, you place Parmenion, the dependable general. And then, with one deep breath, you charge. Straight at Darius. The air explodes with shouting, metal, and the hiss of arrows. The Persian lines ripple like fabric, struggling to absorb your concentrated fury. You hit them with a wedge formation, your cavalry slicing deep into their center. It's personal now. You're not just trying to win, you're trying to reach Darius. The Persian king watches from his chariot. At first, he's calm, but then he sees the panic spreading through his ranks. He sees you in shining armor, eyes locked on him, cutting down his guards like wheat, and he panics. Darius turns his chariot and flees. The effect is immediate. The Persian army, seeing their god-king run, begins to collapse. It's not a retreat, it's a stampede. Men trample each other. Horses scream. Soldiers throw down their weapons and dive into rivers. Some drown in their armor. You pursue for miles, but eventually night falls, and you rein in your horse. The battlefield is yours. Among the spoils, you find something unexpected: Darius's family. His wife, daughters, and mother, all left behind in the chaos. They're terrified, expecting torture, death, humiliation. But instead, you visit their tent, bow politely, and say, "You have nothing to fear. He is still your king, but I am now your protector." Even your generals are surprised. It's not just mercy, it's politics. You know the power of image. Let the world see that you are not a butcher, but a worthy ruler. And, let's be honest, you do enjoy the praise. When word spreads that you wept upon learning Darius's wife died in childbirth not long after. Meanwhile, letters pour in. City-states you've never even heard of are surrendering without a fight. Your name is becoming myth before your sword even cools. But not everyone is celebrating. Back in Macedonia, your mother Olympias writes you a steady stream of letters, filled with encouragement and manipulation. She's asserting power in your absence, pulling strings and removing rivals. You trust her, mostly, but you've also learned from her. People like her taught you the value of charm laced with venom. And speaking of venom, your next destination is Tyre, a fortified island city off the Phoenician coast. It refuses to let you enter. Big mistake. Tyre sits on a rock half a mile offshore, surrounded by seawalls, and believes itself invincible. So you build a causeway. Across the water, literally dragging earth, wood, and stone to create a road to the city. It takes 7 months. Your men call it madness. But slowly, day by day, the sea turns to land. You bring in siege towers, ballistae, and even navies from other conquered ports. Finally, you breach the walls. The battle is brutal, house-to-house fighting, fire, screaming, and when it's done, you raze the city. Thousands are killed, survivors are enslaved. This time, mercy takes a vacation. Why so harsh? Tyre challenged your authority, delayed your campaign, and made you look vulnerable. You had to make an example. And now the world sees, defy Alexander, and you disappear from the map. From there, you move south. Most cities surrender except for Gaza, which resists for 2 months. You're injured in the siege, an arrow pierces your shoulder, but you fight on, bandaged and furious. When you finally break through, you order the governor dragged behind a chariot. Your darker side is surfacing more often now. Then you arrive in Egypt. And something odd happens. They welcome you, with flowers, music, cheering. They hate the Persians and see you as a liberator. You don't conquer Egypt, you glide into it like a living god. You visit their temples, pay respects to Ra and Isis, and even adopt some Egyptian customs. At Memphis, you're crowned pharaoh. They place the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt on your head and proclaim you son of Amun. You go with it. Why not? Being divine has its perks. But the weirdest part comes when you ride west across the desert to visit the Oracle of Siwa, an ancient shrine near the Libyan border. It's a brutal journey. Burning sun, sandstorms, heat delirium. At one point, you nearly lose the path and your life. But you arrive, dusty and half-mad, and enter the temple alone. No one knows exactly what the oracle tells you. You emerge changed, serene, confident. Some say the priest called you son of Zeus. Others think you asked whether all of Asia would be yours, and were told yes. Whatever it was, it cements your belief that you are more than human. And maybe, just maybe, you start to believe your own legend. You leave Egypt with a new title, new followers, and plans drawn for a city called Alexandria, a gleaming port that will one day become the jewel of the Mediterranean. It's the first of many cities you'll name after yourself. There will eventually be over 20, which historians affectionately refer to as Alexander's ego in map form. Now, all eyes turn east, because Darius has regrouped, and he's waiting with an army so vast it reportedly stretches for miles across the plain of Gaugamela. And this time, he's ready for you. And he brought everything. Some say 250,000 troops stand against you, though modern historians still argue whether that's just ancient propaganda. Realistically, maybe 100,000 to 150,000. But still, that's more than double your army. His line stretches as far as your eye can see, speckled with cavalry, spearmen, war elephants, and those infamous scythed chariots, each one fitted with spinning blades meant to rip through your ranks like a wheat thresher through corn. So, naturally, you decide to attack at night, but your generals object, especially Parmenion. What if you get lost? What if the troops can't coordinate in the dark? It could end in disaster. You nod, listen, then change the plan. Not because you're convinced, but because you realize Darius is so nervous, he'll stay up all night waiting for your assault. And he does. Your army sleeps, theirs doesn't. By dawn, your men are rested. Theirs, frazzled. You form your lines. The companions take the right under your command. Parmenion holds the left. In the center, phalanxes of gleaming Macedonian spears, the best heavy infantry in the world. You give the signal, and the world tilts. You start not by charging into the center, but by subtly drifting right, drawing the Persians with you. It's like sleight of hand with thousands of lives at stake. Darius sees the motion and overcommits his left wing, trying to flank you. That's when you strike. You smash into a vulnerable gap, pushing hard toward the Persian king. The battlefield becomes a blur of dust, blood, hooves, screaming horses, cries in Persian and Greek. Somewhere behind the line, one of your men, a teenager barely out of his village, drops his spear and picks up a Persian banner. He shouts that Darius is dead. It's a lie, but the rumor spreads like wildfire. Darius, seeing his line buckle and terrified by the shouts of his own troops, flees again, this time on horseback. The king of the world, running from the king of men. You pursue him, fast and furious, your cavalry kicking up sand. But even you can't outrun the wind. He escapes into the mountains, protected by loyal nobles. You rein in your horse and look around. The battlefield is yours. Again. What you've just done, beating a vastly superior army, killing thousands while losing only hundreds, will be studied by generals for centuries. Napoleon will quote it. Eisenhower will read it in school. Gaugamela becomes your masterpiece. And Persia is now yours. You ride into Babylon, the famed city of hanging gardens and endless luxuries, and they greet you not as a conqueror, but as a king. You're given golden keys, garlands, and slaves bearing delicacies you can't even pronounce. You march through the Ishtar Gate, blue and tiled with lions, and your men are stunned silent. Inside, you do something unexpected. You don't loot. You protect temples, restore local customs, and even sponsor religious festivals. This isn't just good PR. It's how you cement control without spilling extra blood. And it works. Babylon bends the knee. So does Susa. Then Persepolis, the glittering ceremonial capital of Persia, falls. Now you are truly king of Asia. But power brings questions. Who are you now, Macedonian general or Persian monarch? Your soldiers start to murmur. You're dressing differently, learning Persian customs, and, most controversially, insisting that visitors prostrate themselves before you. It's called proskynesis, a Persian ritual of bowing. Greeks find it humiliating. Only the gods receive such respect. One of your oldest friends, Callisthenes, refuses to bow. He's later accused of plotting against you. You don't directly kill him, but you also don't save him. He dies in chains. You're changing. Everyone sees it. Some are awed, others are afraid, but you press on, because Darius is still alive, and you want him. You chase him through mountain passes across blistering plains, through cities that quake at your approach, until finally you catch up, but not in the way you'd hoped. You find Darius dead in a wagon, murdered by his own general Bessus, who hoped to curry favor with you. You stare down at the corpse of your greatest rival, and for once, you feel hollow. You order Darius buried with honor in a royal tomb, wrapped in silk, his family in attendance. You even adopt some of his symbols, further blurring the line between conqueror and heir. You're not just Alexander of Macedon anymore. You are Shahanshah, king of kings. But revenge is still part of your nature. You hunt down Bessus, the traitor, and capture him. And just to drive the point home, you hand him over to the Persians, who execute him the old-fashioned way, by tearing him in half. You don't stop them. Now, the Persian Empire is truly yours. From the Aegean to the Indus, your word is law. But you're still not done. There's always more. You push further east, into lands your men have never heard of. Bactria, Sogdiana, places filled with mountains, rebel chiefs, and tribal warriors who bow to no one. It's here that the real grind begins. Not grand battles, but skirmishes, guerrilla warfare, terrain that eats men alive. And it's here that you meet your match, not in war, but in love. Her name is Roxana, daughter of a Bactrian noble. You see her after one of your minor victories, and whether it's the mountain air or the glint in her eye, you fall hard. She's intelligent, poised, and probably thinks you're a lunatic, but that's apparently your type. You marry her, shocking your Macedonian nobles, who expected a more strategic match. But this isn't about strategy. It's about blending East and West. You start wearing more Persian clothes. You begin calling yourself the ruler of all peoples. And in return, the locals start to see you not as a foreign invader, but as their own. Well, some of them. Because back in the army, things are fraying. Your men are homesick. You've been marching for 8 years straight. You keep founding cities, marrying locals, and promoting Persian officers. To your Macedonians, it feels like betrayal. You see unity. They see alienation. Still, you press eastward, because on the edge of your maps is a name whispered with awe: India. And you are Alexander the Great. You're not stopping now. You cross into India under a blazing sun, your armor sticky with sweat, and your eyes squinting against a horizon thick with mystery. This is not the tidy geography of Greece or the vast, dry stretches of Persia. Here, the land is tangled with jungles, rivers swollen by monsoon rains, and creatures your men have never seen. Elephants, tigers, monkeys that scream like ghosts at night. But the people, they're warriors too. Tribes rise against you. Cities close their gates. And every few miles, some local chief with a name you can't pronounce pops up with a small army and a big attitude. Still, one by one they fall, either to your sword or to your silver. You're as good at bribing as you are at breaking. But there's one king who won't play nice. Porus. He rules a kingdom along the Hydaspes River, modern-day Geelum, and he's a giant of a man. Some accounts say he's over 6 feet tall, a wall of muscle who fights atop an elephant. He won't surrender, won't bribe, and won't let you cross his river without a fight. So naturally, you cross the river at night during a thunderstorm. Your scouts find a shallow bend upstream, and with your best cavalry, you sneak across under cover of darkness. Rain lashes your face. Thunder cracks above. You press on through mud and wind, and as dawn breaks, your men splash onto the far bank, soaked, shivering, and ready. Porus is waiting. The Battle of the Hydaspes is chaos. Imagine elephants, giant angry tanks charging your phalanx. Horses rear in terror, men scatter, but you adapt. You flank the elephants, jab at their feet, confuse their riders. One elephant charges your line, tusks soaked in blood. You ride into the mess, sword drawn, dodging under its trunk. Porus fights with honor. He doesn't run like Darius. Even when wounded, even when his elephant collapses beneath him, he fights on. Eventually, exhausted and surrounded, he surrenders. You ride up, dismount, and ask him how he wishes to be treated. Like a king, he says. You nod. That's exactly how I'll treat you. Your men glance at each other, confused, but you see the long game. Mercy here doesn't weaken you, it amplifies you. You return Porus to his throne, even giving him more territory to rule. In return, he becomes one of your fiercest allies in the region. And when people ask why he didn't die fighting, you tell them, who wouldn't want a man like that as a friend? But this high is short-lived. Because your army? They're done. They've marched through deserts, scaled mountains, crossed rivers, and now, soaked to the bone and mosquito-bitten, they hear whispers of even greater kingdoms beyond, of a ruler named Magadha, who commands 1,000 war elephants. Your men dig in their heels. They're tired, homesick, older than when they left. Many haven't seen Macedonia in nearly a decade, and now you're asking them to plunge even deeper into the unknown. You beg, you argue, you sulk. You even go to your tent for 3 days, refusing food. Still, they refuse. This is one of the only times in your life that the will of others bends yours. You call a council. Standing above the muddy riverbank, eyes hollow from sleeplessness, you announce, "We will go no further." The men erupt with joy. You turn your army around and begin the long journey home. But even the return is brutal. You don't retrace your steps westward through the mountains. Instead, you try a bold, nearly suicidal route through the Gedrosian desert, a wasteland of baking heat and choking sandstorms. Historians still argue whether this was strategic madness or punishment for your men's rebellion. What is certain, it is catastrophic. You lose more soldiers here than in any battle. Men drop from thirst, from heat stroke. Camels die standing up. Whole units vanish in sandstorms. You, ever theatrical, march on foot with the rest, refusing water until your troops are served. At one point, a soldier offers you a helmet full of water. You pour it on the ground. If all can't drink, I won't either. It becomes legend. Eventually, you make it back to Babylon. You're older, leaner, and your legend is even larger than when you left. The world greets you not as a king or a conqueror, but as a demigod. And you start to believe it. You begin to reshape your empire. You marry again, this time taking 2 Persian princesses in a grand wedding at Susa. You order 80 of your generals to marry local women too, one massive cross-cultural ceremony. The goal? A unified empire, Greek and Persian, soldier and scholar, East and West. Not everyone loves the idea, some grumble, others resist. But don't care. You're not building an army now. You're building a civilization. You even bring in thousands of Persian youths, training them in Macedonian warfare, hoping they'll merge the 2 worlds. To prove your point, you dismiss 10,000 veteran Macedonians and replace them with these new troops. The old guard is furious. They mutiny. For the first time, you stand in front of your own men and scream, not in anger, but in pain. You accuse them of ingratitude, of forgetting that everything they are, you gave them. Your voice cracks. You even cry. The army, ashamed, begs forgiveness. Still, the cracks in your empire are showing. Holding it together is like gripping a fistful of sand. You start sending satraps, local governors across the empire. Some stay loyal, others hoard power, and now rumors of plots reach your ears. Paranoia sets in. You order purges. Trusted generals, like Parmenion, the man who once held your flank at Gaugamela, are executed for suspected treason. His son, Philotas, goes first, tortured until he confesses, true or not. Then Parmenion is killed on your command. Some call it ruthless. You call it necessary. But deep down, you wonder, have I gone too far? Still, the dream presses on. You plan new campaigns, Arabia, even Carthage. You start commissioning grand fleets and trading cities. You draw maps with blank spaces you're determined to fill. But your body? It's starting to betray you. You drink too much, sleep too little. Old wounds ache. The nights stretch long, filled with memories and what-ifs. Your closest friends, like Hephaestion, are worried. Hephaestion, your second self, the one man you trust completely. Until he falls ill and dies. You collapse. Rage, grieve, refuse food for days. You order a massive funeral, divine honors and temples in his name. Some say it broke something inside you. You don't deny it. The empire is your legacy, but Hephaestion was your heart. And now it's gone. You sit alone in Babylon, staring at the embers of a flickering oil lamp. The once vibrant court is hushed, and the air is thick with incense, heat, and the lingering ache of grief. Hephaestion's death hit you like no blade ever could. Not even the wounds you took in battle, deep and jagged, cut this sharply. He wasn't just your general or your friend. He was the mirror of your soul. You've started believing the old stories, that the gods let mortals climb only so high before they knock them down. And yet, you aren't finished climbing. Even now, you sketch out new invasions. You talk of Arabia, of mapping the coasts of Africa, of pushing west toward the Pillars of Hercules and beyond. But something in you is slipping. You start drinking more. Not the celebratory kind, but the dangerous kind. Long, brooding banquets where the wine flows like rivers and the food goes untouched. Your closest companions whisper that you've grown unpredictable, that the man who wept on the banks of the Indus is still weeping, just more quietly now. And then you fall ill. It starts small, a fever, a chill in your bones, maybe from a wound that never healed, maybe from something in the Babylonian air, maybe, just maybe, from the gods, finally calling in their debt. Historians still argue whether it was malaria, typhoid, or poison, theories piled like your old battle plans. But whatever it was, it takes hold fast. Within days, you can't stand. Your generals gather around your bed, and you see the worry in their faces. These are hardened men, veterans of Gaugamela, Tyre, the Gedrosian desert, and now they're blinking back tears. You try to rise, fail, you try to speak, only whispers come. Someone asks, "To whom do you leave your empire?" You murmur, "To the strongest." It's either a cruel joke or a final challenge. The empire you built is like a glass globe spinning on your fingertip, and the moment you die, it shatters. But let's not rush ahead, because in your final days, something strange happens. Crowds begin to line the halls of your palace. Macedonians, Persians, Egyptians, even some of the Indian cavalry you brought back from the east. All silent, all waiting for one last glimpse. They file past your bed, one by one, and even as your vision dims, you raise your hand to each of them. A final blessing. You're 32. 32. It's hard to believe. You've lived more in one decade than most dynasties in a century. At 20, you were a king. At 25, you ruled 2 continents. By 30, you were already a myth. And yet, lying here, soaked in sweat, eyes half closed, it all feels strangely small. You think of your mother, Olympias, who swore you were divine. You think of your father, Philip, whose shadow you tried to outrun. You think of Hephaestion, of Roxana, of your unborn child. You think of Bucephalus, your old horse, buried back in India with a city named in his honor. And maybe, just maybe, you wonder, was it all worth it? There are no trumpets when you die, just silence and a ripple across the world. Your body is placed in a golden sarcophagus, nestled in honey and surrounded by perfumes. Your generals argue over where to bury you, Macedonia, Babylon, Egypt. Eventually, one of them, Ptolemy, steals your corpse, literally hijacks the funeral procession and reroutes it to Egypt. Because he knows, whoever holds your body holds your legacy. In Egypt, they build you a tomb. A glorious, shimmering construct in Alexandria, the city you founded, which will one day hold a lighthouse, a library, and whispers of greatness for centuries. For a while, people travel from across the world to see your body. Even Julius Caesar visits, and later so does Augustus. But eventually, your tomb disappears, lost to time, just like the borders you redrew. The cities you named after yourself, over 20 of them, many survive, but others crumble into the dust. Your dream of unity, a hybrid world of East and West, it fractures almost instantly. Your generals, the Diadochi, tear the empire into chunks, each claiming a piece of you. Some claim to act in your name. Others just want the gold. Wars rage for decades, thousands die, and your son, Alexander IV, is eventually murdered before he ever rules. You are gone, but your myth, that lives on. Because let's be honest, history loves a good story. The boy who tamed the horse no one could ride. The prince who became king before he could shave. The general who never lost a battle. The man who wept, not because there were no worlds left to conquer, but because he was running out of time. Artists paint you, writers mythologize you, the Romans worship you, the Persians both curse and admire you. In medieval Europe, stories pop up claiming you slew sea monsters and built walls to hold back Gog and Magog. You're turned into a prophet in the Quran, a legend in Ethiopian folklore, and even a saint in Armenian tradition. You're everything to everyone. And almost no one agrees on who you really were. But you? You were Alexander. You lived at a gallop, burned through cities, mountains, and empires like wildfire. You took a knife and carved your name into the very fabric of the world. Not always wisely, not always kindly, but undeniably. And now, you sleep somewhere. Maybe beneath Alexandria. Maybe in some long-forgotten vault. Maybe in a place no one will ever find. But the name? That's still out there, still echoing. Alexander the Great.